I think before I start, I would like to give a brief historical introduction how we came here, so that you can get it in a correct place. So blockchain all started in 2008 when Satoshi Nakamoto started his white paper in which he described a way to get consensus on certain states, certain values of balances of Bitcoin, but without having one central registry who is actually keeping track of these balances. Well, it was phenomenal. This was the very first time that such a problem was solved. But just keeping track of account balances is great, but it's not that great, not that flexible. And a couple of years later, Vitalik Buterin, he started with the idea of, hey, wait, if we can get consensus on states of balances of Bitcoin, why cannot we get consensus on something else? So he started Ethereum chain, and with Ethereum, the idea was to get consensus on the state of a virtual machine. And this virtual machine could handle arbitrary programs, which you call smart contracts, and you could program that and people can interact with them, and you had great flexibility because within these programs, you could also keep a ledger of balances, just as you're actually having in Bitcoin. So it was much more flexible. And here we come today, we are actually speaking about a technology which is just like Ethereum, having consensus on the state of a virtual machine. But with RChain, I think what's very special is that they thought about, okay, we can get consensus of a virtual machine, but what virtual machine do we choose? And it turns out that having a virtual machine like Ethereum has, the Ethereum virtual machine, is maybe not that of good of a choice for blockchain. I mean, it's working great, but Ethereum has some troubles with scaling, which they are trying to solve, and I'm actually confident they will be solved to a certain degree. But it's just not from the ground level up designed to be a virtual machine for the blockchain. So here comes RChain into the picture, because RChain is a concurrent virtual machine, which is a completely different way of computing, which has, in a mathematical way of describing things, has the notion of concurrency. And concurrency is having different processes, having different things, contracts you can call them, who are running at the same time, but which can influence each other on the fly. So you can think of processes as very abstract things, like a blockchain, like a shard of a blockchain, or like smart contracts, or private blockchains, public blockchains, who can live together, who can do their own stuff, but when needed, they can interact and they can influence each other. So I'm not going to talk much more about this because we'll have the whole evening, and I hope in the end you will be maybe as fascinated by it as I am, because I'm only involved with RChain for 4 weeks, but in these 4 weeks I've learned a lot, and my head is blowing. I think we all know the idea when we started to understand blockchain, and we were like having mindfuck. I think you will recognize that. And I think the same mindfuck happened to me for the second time when I started to understand RChain. So, I mean, I hope if maybe 5 people in this room or 10 people in this room who experience this mindfuck, that's great. Then send me an email if you have that. I would love to have that, and we can do an interview maybe. So, Tim is our very first speaker, and enjoy the evening.